Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this Achates live session, which has been pre-recorded for broadcast on Thursday, the 12th of September. Today, we're going to be talking about corporate membership. My name's Deborah Larwood, and I'm the Director of Income Generation here at Achates. We're a cultural consultancy company supporting commercial and contributed income generation, impact measurement and evaluation, business planning and strategy at both an organisational and policy level, as well as leadership development, change management and recruitment. Our monthly webinar series of Achates Live takes a deep dive into key topics and areas of focus or challenge in both contributed and earned income generation. And whilst we of course acknowledge that Achates doesn't necessarily have all the answers, what we do have, we think, is an overview of the sector itself, and we're really passionate about using this perspective and role in a supportive way. And finally, just to say that, as always, all of the information shared in today's conversation is, of course, live and correct at the time of broadcast. Now, I'm really delighted to be able to welcome our special guests this afternoon, who will be exploring the topic of developing and delivering corporate membership fundraising with me today. Firstly, I'm joined by Claire Cox, Head of Development at Harewood House Trust. Claire is a fundraiser who's worked for more than 20 years within the charitable and heritage sector. She spent 18 years heading up the development team at the Royal Armouries, where she was involved in all aspects of fundraising, from donor cultivation and high-level bid writing to running imaginative events and producing compelling sponsorship collateral. Claire left the Armouries in September of last year to join the team at Harewood House Trust as Head of Development, where she was originally a team of one for her first 6 months and is now a team of two, where she's laying the foundations for capital fundraising by re-establishing fundraising across the sectors, from statutory and trust through to corporate partnership and membership, all the way through to visitor donations. Apart from apparently questioning her sanity at times, she's mostly really loving the chance to be hands-on in all aspects of fundraising again, and in helping the Harewood team, of course, to realise its fantastic potential. Hello, Claire, it's great to see you.
Hi, Deborah, thanks for having me.
And our second panellist today is Priya Radhakrishnan, Corporate Development Manager at the Old Vic. Priya is an experienced fundraiser specialising in corporate relationships and partnerships. She's currently working, as I say, at the Old Vic, and previously worked for the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Priya's worked on a rich portfolio of small through to major corporate partnerships, as well as in-kind sponsorship accounts. She's also a member of the LPO's New Gen board, working on cultivating and diversifying classical music audiences. Earlier this year, Priya was recognised on Walpole's Power List of 50 influential individuals in luxury and culture, and graduated from Oxford University with a degree in music, and is also a keen choral singer and opera singer in her spare time. Good afternoon to you too, Priya.
Thank you, Deborah. It's lovely to be here.
So, before we jump into our conversation today, I want to talk a little bit about corporate membership more broadly. The corporate membership model really creates the conditions to drive a large number of businesses through a structured and often tiered giving programme. It's probably one of the most established mechanisms for corporate support, and it's often the best place for cultural organisations to begin as they start to grow this income stream. Now, much like individual membership and patron programmes, corporate membership schemes have typically leaned into the transactional approach, with most organisations taking an asset-based approach to this, using assets such as events and public offers as touch points for stewarding the clients and staff of their corporate member organisations and deepening multi-stakeholder relationships in the process. It's fair to say, I think, that generally speaking, corporate membership attracts businesses with moderate budgets who might have other memberships across different cultural organisations and art forms. In this instance, it's likely that the corporate already has some understanding and appreciation of the impact of the cultural sector and what it can drive from a social perspective, and of the return on investment that a cultural relationship can deliver for them from a business perspective. And once in the membership programme, I always think that the really important work can then begin to instill a deeper understanding of the scope for working further in partnership. And this is where the potential can really be explored for a relationship which will enhance the purpose and ambitions of both parties, but more on that for another session, I imagine. A successful corporate membership programme, though, will take its foundations from the quality of the cultural organisation's work, with successful delivery and touch points throughout the year. And given corporate membership's genesis as a transactional corporate relationship, corporate members still tend to seek opportunities to entertain their clients and engage staff through the membership. And consequently, the depth of the organisational relationship that provides opportunities to bring their clients and employees closer to the organisation's work, perhaps the creatives and the beneficiaries, in unique and memorable ways, is really crucial to successful corporate membership schemes. And without this due care and attention to detail, acquisition and retention of supporters will be incredibly challenging. So in summary, the corporate member will be incentivised to support if they are assured of the quality and consistency of the work and of the value that a commercial relationship can drive both to their business and to the wider society as a whole. And where we can see that such a relationship will be invested in and valued by the organisation itself, and this will all manifest in the quality of communications and the stewardship that they receive. Now, if that sounds formulaic, then I should be really clear that it absolutely isn't. We can't simply ape what others in the sector are doing and expect the same outcomes with our own corporate members. What will work for a gallery in the capital, for example, simply won't have the same outcomes for a literature organisation in the Northwest. And as with all fundraising, the starting point should be to look at your organisation, to consider its purpose, the priority audiences that you serve, the assets that your organisation has, and the change that the work brings about, as these really are the fundamental conditions within which you can create something distinctive and compelling for a corporate membership proposition. What I think we do know is that there is still a degree of nervousness surrounding corporate fundraising and how good of a return on investment membership schemes such as this really are for cultural organisations. So I'm really looking forward to digging into the experiences and observations and advice of our two brilliant panellists on this topic today. So it's at this point that I'm now going to draw Claire and Priya into today's conversation, and I'd really like to begin by asking each of you in turn to tell us a little bit about your work in this area, your thoughts on establishing or perhaps evolving corporate membership programmes, and any considerations for what successful schemes look like. I wonder, Claire, can I come to you first on that?
Of course. So thanks again for having me. I have to say, when you invited me to do this, I got such imposter syndrome because although I've worked in the sector for such a long time, I think corporate's not an area I've ever felt a specialist in. I've always been really lucky until joining Howard to have a really skilled corporate partnerships or corporate membership member of the team. So I've always managed to kind of guide and develop them and, you know, let them really get stuck into those relationships. It was really interesting joining Howard and realizing that actually there was very little in place for corporate sponsorship. In fact, actually, I joined really to be kind of to advance their capital fundraising and to really get stuck into the capital development project. Lovely an idea as that was, there wasn't really a baseline across the board, across the sectors for me to be able to do that. I don't know whether you guys agree, but I think it's quite hard to go straight into capital campaigning when you don't have your revenue sorted out at all. So there was some really great work. We had some great relationships, particularly with sort of key statutory funding sources and certain trusts and foundations. But the corporate membership scheme was, I would say, underpriced and was more seen as a kind of an extension of the membership generally. I mean, obviously, we're hugely reliant on memberships as one of the treasure houses in the UK. I really thought, I think it took some persuading internally that I had any time. I mean, as you know, team of one, didn't really have any time to look at corporate. If you're trying to write bids to Heritage Fund and ACE, it doesn't leave a lot of time over for looking at anything else. But I felt like we had so much potential for corporate. We definitely had great potential for a corporate membership scheme. We already had quite a successful venue hire events business. The events team were working with some really incredible partners, but it was very much a transactional, we want to do this event and we'll do this event brilliantly, and then we'll say goodbye until you come back to us for maybe another event in a year's time. And I think really having that sort of corporate development partnership angle just was missing, really. So I think for me, the really fabulous part about it has been about getting under the skin of Harewood and what we have to offer. We've got incredible assets there that, you know, most fundraisers would be very, very happy to have. I think it's about drawing that together and understanding who we are as a brand and what our assets are. Looking at who already uses us, who books us as a venue, who comes back to us time and time again. So they obviously already love us. And then the rest of it has been about really making that case internally for the value of working on, you know, developing corporate partnership and how crucial that could be in a period of capital campaigning. So the two areas that I've focused on initially, which aren't the valuable cash that everyone wants, but they're still or not necessarily quite transitioned into cash just yet, have been in kind, which has just been really great for us in my first sort of nearly year there. And also the starting a membership scheme that's kind of at a meaningful level and means that people aren't just buying a corporate membership and getting 20 cards and sharing them around friends and family and not really having any kind of affinity or connection. So we've really focused on working out who we are and being able to articulate that, working out who already loves us and who has potential to love us but don't realize they love us yet. They just see us as a great Christmas party venue or whatever that happens to be. And then really making that case to the board and to our exec. And also the key one for me was making the case to our commercial team, who I am absolutely sure saw me arrive and talk about developing relationships with their client base and were quite concerned about that. So I think the key thing for me has been about that collaborative working, sitting down with that team immediately when I started and saying, I am not here to steal your valuable income that, you know, your KPIs are based on. And I think that one of the key wins for me, even though it's very much in its infancy, has been about developing a joint scheme that sits around our venue hire business and our corporate events business, but talks about that and sells that. So whenever I'm talking to a potential, we've called it Harewood Business Circle member, I'm very happy to pivot straight away to say that doesn't suit you, but absolutely I can put you in touch with my colleague who can talk to you about that particular venue hire or, you know, what you want to achieve. And I've found that the events team can absolutely do the same. So not only have we worked on a joint piece of print and a joint scheme, but we're actually hosting a corporate fam day in the next couple of weeks, which on one hand is talking about the benefits of being a corporate member of Harewood, but on the other hand is showcasing everything we do. And that's obviously, as you said, Deborah, it's not just about what a great place we are to have a party or what behind the scenes offers might look like, but also what we do as an organisation, what our values are, what social impact we're working on, and how corporates, whether they're using us for venue hire or whether they're a corporate member, how they can actually achieve their own CSR by aligning with us. And I think my attitude is the more we grow that corporate membership and the more we grow those kind of in-kind partnerships as well, those are the people who we tell first about the next exhibition sponsorship opportunity or partnership opportunity. Those are the people we talk to about our education outreach work. And I would be stunned if those are the people who in a couple of years aren't, don't end up being converted into that kind of longer term, higher level partnership, because hopefully by then we'll have delivered something for them, for their clients, for their employees, and they will have seen the impact that that support is having on some of our excluded or underserved audiences as well.
Great, thank you so much, Claire. I mean, there's so much in there that I think we'll be able to dig into a bit more when we come to some questions. But if I may, just a couple of things that really jumped out at me. The first thing I think is just that role that you have, and that anybody in sort of a role such as yours has in sort of balancing or being a conduit for stakeholder relationships. So you talked really eloquently about building the value internally for creating the space to develop the scheme, and what trying to articulate and get that buy-in so that people can see what the potential is if you are given that space to really build something. But also thinking about what does value mean to the corporate themselves, and how do we ensure that we're not underselling ourselves, and that, of course, when thinking about that sort of the pricing, some of those considerations, rightly so, are around what the actual cost is to your organization when putting together your benefits package, as it were. But it's also about what is the value to the corporate as well. And they are two different things that you need to think about alongside one another. I also really like what you were saying about starting with in kind. And it sounded to me like that in many respects can be seen as sort of a blueprint for building meaningful relationships, that then sets the frame for the other types of relationship that might have more sort of, cash elements within them as well. And the point about affinity and connection, I think as with all fundraising is, of course, all about relationships, but really taking the time to think about the corporate in those terms, as opposed to sort of a faceless business or brand. So I really like what you were saying about, using the partnership and that dialogue to build that affinity and identify shared values and shared kind of ambitions and interests, and lots of other things that, like I say, I'd love to dig into in a moment or two. So thank you so much. Priya, let's come to you and hear some of your thoughts and reflections on corporate membership fundraising.
Yeah, just to say thanks again, Deborah, for having me. It was lovely to hear from you, Claire, and I really take your point on imposter syndrome in corporate. I think even as a specialist corporate fundraiser, with the way the world is, it feels like every month you're operating in a different landscape and you question, have I really been doing this all this while? So our corporate membership program at the Old Vic has been up and running for quite some time now, over a decade, and it's grown, evolved, transformed in keeping with changing world events. I'd say there's been a few changing world events in the past few years. Our key selling point for corporate membership is obviously our on-stage work, but I think we really like to focus on the diversity and breadth of the work, which is part of our intentional programming. So each season we stage new writing, a family show, a classic with a twist, a musical, creating the sense that there's something for everyone to be enjoyed, which makes the offer universally applicable and attractive, which I think is important to a membership scheme. And underpinning this is our efforts to foreground the Old Vic's heritage and history, 200 plus years of history. And corporate membership is a way to engage and participate in that history. Looking at our kind of membership benefits portfolio, I see that as really being stakeholder centric, engaging 4 distinct areas, which I like to think are client, employee, business, and brand. And by handpicking benefits that are attractive and manageable, we make that benefit delivery process efficient over the organization, using resources in a sustainable way and drawing on resources in appropriate amount. I remember when I was starting out in corporate fundraising, one of my first kind of big responsibilities was managing the membership scheme and the portfolio of members. And it was such an empowering experience reflecting on it, because it's challenging us to think creatively, holistically with relationship building at the Nexus. On that note, I think it's quite important and something I maybe don't see as often for a package to be versatile. So allowing stakeholders to be introduced to, in our case, the theatre or the organisation with light touch activations, but giving that scope to commemorate special occasions with unique and bespoke events or opportunities. For example, we offer all our members tickets, we host events with creative insights to bring them together, but at our highest tier of membership, we offer them the opportunity to host an event on stage. And that's really a standout benefit and what draws companies to us. So why would we not feature that in our membership scheme? And Deborah, as both you and Claire pointed out, goes without saying, successful corporate relations are built on successful interpersonal relationships. And I think this is true, especially for memberships, because you're often interacting with one or maybe 2 points of contact, unlike a major partnership where there's, an army on either side. And I quite like thinking of it as you're cultivating a champion who can represent your organization, what you stand for, and use their position in the member company to influence others. And to cultivate a champion, you need to understand what makes them tick, what they value. An example that always makes me go warm and fuzzy inside is one of our corporate members came on board when an executive came to watch A Christmas Carol. And as a tradition, we fundraise for a food insecurity charity with this production. And he was really, and this was right after the pandemic, and he was really moved that us as a charity, we were doing our bit for other charities and for a very important cause. He took the message to the company, they signed up for a membership, and we've enjoyed a really strong relationship rooted in their belief of our social mission. So I think that warm, fuzzy feeling goes a long way. And it's just really the beauty of partnerships that brings together the financial, the philanthropic, and the social all in one. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks so much, Priya. Again, some really interesting points. I think in particular, when thinking about the framework of a corporate membership, where we often have that, fairly sort of prescriptive list of benefits or, experiences that a corporate can expect as part of their relationship. I think being able to be open to flexibility is a really, really important point, well made, actually, because in terms of the stewardship of any relationship, of course, it has to be proportionate, and there are certain things that perhaps will be disproportionate requests or ideas, but that idea of being open to actually how can we better engage and serve this relationship for the benefit of its longevity, and even perhaps, to lay the foundations for a growth in that relationship. So I really like the idea of having that corporate membership scheme in place, but also taking the time to have that internal understanding of what could flexibility around these packages look like? How much further could we go? How might we tweak or slightly amend or adjust what we're doing with a particular business if we believe it will be for the benefit of the relationship ultimately? And the other point that I wanted to come back to was really about the sort of practicalities, the logistics of managing multiple relationships through a scheme, and ensuring that as much as possible, I think what you said was that they are sustainable to deliver, they're efficient to deliver. And that's a really important point. I think we can all think about relationships that we've perhaps been responsible for managing, which have been time consuming. And for any supporter, donor, corporate or otherwise, we always want the relationship to feel bespoke and to feel personal, but we're also having to balance that against the reality of we don't have infinite time and all the other competing pressures. So it's interesting, I think, to consider how we might structure corporate membership schemes and delivery in a way which makes it feel personal and tailored, but which also enables the organization to deliver it, at scale, without sort of negatively impacting upon your resources and where you're placing those resources. Thank you both so much. I would love to start off with a question that really pertains to corporate membership fundraising and organizational purpose. And I'm going to just ground this question in within Achates, our sort of ethos and approach is very much rooted in a purpose-driven, audience-informed approach to fundraising, to strategy, and so on and so forth. And I'm interested in your thoughts as to how we can use corporate membership schemes, which will, invariably have that stated list of benefits or engagements and assets, how we can use that framework and still achieve a purpose-driven approach and relational fundraising. Priya, can I come to you first on that?
Yeah, of course, happy to. I think, what Claire pointed out about, pricing your product accurately to reflect your value, I think that's very important. And in that same vein, I also think it's important that a well-designed multi-tiered membership structure has an accessible entry point and also allows for or encourages even upward movement. When I was at the LPO, we provided a trialist membership level, so designed as a sort of lower cost taster for potential members before they got into the main 3 tiers. And I think doing something like that, it's not only serves a practical purpose, but I think narratively it shows that you're putting your best foot forward and taking a really strong commercial product to market. Deborah, you touched on this earlier, but post-pandemic, there's been a discussion about, is membership attractive compared to more bespoke partnerships or one-off activations, and the feasibility of servicing a portfolio of multiple members. I mean, membership is a year-long commitment traditionally, and I think to seal that commitment, you not only define your brand identity and your USPs, but you embed that within the offer. And as charitable organizations, I think it's powerful to balance the commercial with the philanthropic. We're in the unique position where we can appeal to what people care about socially and within the community and give them an opportunity to apply that in the workplace. And I think that's quite important to people, particularly working in sort of traditional private sector industries. I think embracing that is a great tool for purpose-driven fundraising when you adapt your message to your audience. I see quite a lot of organizations driving a local business membership with, tailored benefits for that. And I think it's a good way to generate sustainable income while positioning yourself within your local community. So yeah, just I guess in conclusion, gathering my thoughts, I think it's a menu of benefits that balances your commercial and charitable goals, underpinned by a well-defined USP, and also having a good knowledge of market trends and the businesses you're operating in. I think that's what contributes to an attractive and dynamic membership offer.
Great, thank you, Priya. Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that it's the way that we articulate the corporate proposition. We absolutely can weave together the relationship that the business can expect to enjoy over the period of, say, that year. Can also articulate the change that their support will help the organization bring about, and to really frame that as a partnership and a partnership effort. Claire, what are your thoughts on that question?
I'd agree with that. I mean, I think the kind of organizations that we're approaching are just, they're not questioning why we're approaching them, because the synergy's there, and we know that they're working in an area that sort of works with our values and our brand. I would say that anyone who isn't in that sphere and doesn't know who Harewood is potentially might still want to use this as a nice backdrop, but I think it's about our identity and our brand and us being very, very clear on that. I think, for example, it's if you are local to Harewood, or potentially even you've kept an eye on the kind of colonial narrative and Harewood addressing where the wealth that built the house and grounds came from, that's been going on for sort of 20 to 30 years, and I think that's something that we're known for. So it would be we're very upfront about that, and we're very clear about that. We're currently redoing our website, and that's going to be launched, that, you know, so that's sort of upfront and central. Our programming is very clear about that. And I think the fact that we are different, some of the other treasure houses, completely respect what they're doing, but we're a bit of a treasure house with a twist. And I think we're very comfortable with being in that position. We're very comfortable in all of our communications, in all the conversations we have with everyone who wants to join us. And I think, you know, we're looking at ways that, for example, we've launched a £2 ticket for people on benefits or with refugee status. We're very upfront about that. We're very upfront about how corporate membership and partnership can support that. And we're also looking at, I think your entry point stuff, Priya, was spot on. It's about getting that balance. We are aware when we removed our old corporate membership level, I had lots of really disappointed people and felt very guilty, you know, forwarding on to me saying, we're this kind of organization, we're essentially a social enterprise, or we're you know, we represent disenfranchised groups, and we really relied on that membership. We can't afford the new membership. And we were like, yeah, absolutely right, we're going to sort that out immediately. So we are looking at community access membership, which is the equivalent of corporate membership, which is not live yet, but I guess I've just sort of said it to loads of people. So so we're looking at basically almost that idea of your twinning. You know, if you become a corporate member, you know, some of the companies that we're speaking to and that we work with can easily afford that membership, and they get a lot more benefits. If they were booking all of those lovely benefits with us commercially, it would cost a lot more than the membership. But in addition, they are supporting an organization who wants to bring those groups who wouldn't normally be able to access. I think that's very important to us. And I think we all know in that sector that the days of just it being transactional and a very glamorous party for a corporate for their high net worth clients, those days, which I did have some joy of experiencing at the Tower and at the Armories, those are not conversations that we're having anymore. People don't arrive and say, we've got a 50 grand budget and we'd love to do a big reception. I prefer it now, to be honest with you. I mean, it makes it a lot more difficult to reach your targets, but I think it's just about being really clear in who you are and what you do and what your aspirations are as a charity. And yes, you're a charity, but you also want to make sure that you're as inclusive as possible. And those businesses who are in a lucky enough position to be able to help can, you know, support you. You're almost matching that money directly to the beneficiary, and it's sort of win-win on all sides. Everyone is getting to experience whatever your assets are. In our case, it's incredible history, heritage, wonderful gardens, nature, grounds, sort of well-being. You know, you're getting to not only share that and enjoy that, share that with your clients and your staff, but you know that you're also facilitating that for a whole group of people who wouldn't be able to access it otherwise. Have I answered the question at all there?
You absolutely have, Claire. Yeah, and that's it. You know, I think I completely agree. It's about connecting those two things. So it is about the role that corporate is actually playing in enabling you as an organization to be accessible, to engage underrepresented communities and audiences. You talked quite a bit at the start about understanding your identity as an organization, which I mentioned in my sort of opening words, that actually the task is not simply to look at what other people are doing in the sector and to replicate. It's about, I think, understanding what makes your organization distinctive and really celebrating that and harnessing the assets that come from that distinctiveness. And the other thing that you said that we've not really touched on actually is synergy with a corporate. And I think, you know, that's we haven't talked about prospect research, but you know, as important as it is to create a scheme which really speaks to who your organization is and what you do and who you serve and the change it brings about, we've also got to ensure that the businesses that we are identifying as potential corporate members, that actually they are aligned, that there are synergies that we can identify, and those synergies might pertain to I don't know, the business's shared interest in some of the social challenges that maybe your work is addressing, or it might be that that business is particularly focused on also engaging and supporting or benefiting particular communities of interest. Whatever those synergies are, I think you're absolutely right. We have to, when going into that process of cultivating to try and bring corporates into our membership scheme, we have to feel confident ourselves that there is a good argument for why you should be partnered and where those synergies are. We have actually done an Achates Live on prospect research, but I tend to think that the corporate prospect research is sort of almost sort of a more nuanced approach, and also going back to what we were saying before about relationships, understanding who within that potential business is going to be key for us to build relationships with, and also who is most appropriate within our own organizations to participate in that relationship building. I wonder, because there'll be many people watching, I'm sure, who are perhaps at the early on or at the beginning of thinking about corporate fundraising. And as I mentioned earlier, I think membership is often the starting point. We start with sort of building a scheme or a program to test the water and to begin to forge relationships in this way, and then perhaps sort of build out over time. So if somebody was in that position and they're starting to think about what their corporate membership program could look like and how it would work and how they might go about establishing it, what advice would you give them? Claire, I'm going to come to you first on that one.
Well, I'm doing it now, obviously, so this is very live for me. I mean, I think we've touched on some of this already, but absolutely understanding who you are and having that clear set of, you know, what's your brand, what are your aims and objectives, what's your vision, what's your audience development plan, just really getting under the skin of the organization you're in. I mean, I was lucky enough at Harewood that I'd been a member for many years, and I had a really clear idea of what Harewood did brilliantly, but I arrived and there were many misunderstandings on my part about who Harewood was, how it was funded, how the Lascelles family were involved, all of that. So I think it was really interesting for me to get my head around that and understand that we needed to do a better job about articulating that, because if as an engaged member I didn't necessarily understand all of that, then I'm sure lots of other people didn't. I think, you know, you need to look at what your assets are, what people love about you, what's your USP, what makes you different. I had a list of 10 of my these are the people I want as corporate partners within a year when I arrived. Some of them are still on the list, some of them are now in-kind corporate partners, some of them I just realized don't work for Harewood for a whole number of reasons. I think it's very easy to lump all the treasure houses together and assume that they're all the same, and obviously there are huge sort of common denominators there, but I think some of the things Harewood does are just different, and that's great. I think it's really interesting to look, for example, what Castle Howard are doing. We both, for example, work with Nightimber. We both have a 2-year brand partnership with Nightimber, which is one of the first ones I worked on when I arrived. But I think there are other people they're working with that wouldn't work for us. We do Christmas differently, all those sorts of things. So it's about really understanding who we are, what our values are, who we would work with, who we wouldn't. I mean, there's almost a sort of ethical piece of work to be done. It's really hard to do when you're under pressure to secure income. But I think my attitude is, you know, going to the right people where there's that alignment is really key. Understanding when the alignment's not there, that maybe they just want to book their Christmas party, and that's okay. you know, they're not necessarily that they don't necessarily have that long-term potential in the way that other partners do. I think benchmarking with the sector is still a really good thing to do, and understanding who's out there, what types of company are partnering on different types of exhibition or programming, or I think is, but you know, it should be fun. I always think when corporate partnership works well, any part of fundraising works well, it's really good fun. You make really great friendships. I did it at the Royal Armouries when I worked with the History Channel. You know, I'm still in touch with some of the senior team there after many years of working together. You know, just our meetings were fun, our get together, because what we were doing and what they were doing aligned. We were helping each other out. There was enormous mutual benefit. And we all just got on really well. And I think we all know that when it works like that, whereas when you're constantly trying to remind a partner or a member why you do outreach for that community or what relevance that has to Harewood, how that might help them. I just think if it's too hard work, it's probably too resource hungry. So really understanding who you are and who the logical partners are. One of the first pieces of advice I gave to my new member of staff when she joined was, you know, the people on the list, if you phone them and say where you're phoning from, they will understand why. You won't have to spend 20 minutes explaining why you're calling them. And so I think that alignment is just really critical across the board in fundraising, and you know, certainly in corporate.
Great, thank you, Claire. Priya, what would your advice be to somebody starting from the sort of the beginning point?
Yeah, I'll see what I can add to all the brilliant points that Claire brought up, considering she's in reporting from the eye of the storm, I guess, or the eye of the meadow, whatever your persuasion is. I think your point about defining your audience was really important, and setting achievable targets. So asking yourself, who is this for? Why would they be interested in these benefits? And how many members can I realistically identify, cultivate, onboard, and service? I think that's so essential. In terms of setting up a scheme, you know, we've talked about an asset-based approach, and I think it's important to do an audit of your assets and find those that are manageable and meaningful. You know, you brought up Christmas. What is it about Christmas that makes corporates tick? But if that's your strength, it's important to lean into it. And on one level, you know, assets can be physical opportunities, tickets to an exhibition or a show, space hire, you know, discounts in a cafe or a shop. But I think another level, and arguably more important, is thinking of your asset access to interesting and wonderful people, you know, your artists, creatives, beneficiaries, you know, people who make the organization what it is. They're the most valuable asset at your disposal. And I think this is also where you flex your muscle for managing internal stakeholders. The other thing I'll say is that while designing a membership scheme, I think there's some strategic factors to keep in mind as well. So I really believe in having a robust comm strategy. You might, you know, depending on your setup, you might not see members quite as often as some other partners or individual members. So I think it's important to keep them in the know and included. I know some organizations very cleverly leverage their existing content as an engagement tool. So they give members an exclusive preview of something before it's released publicly. And this is a really good way to generate a feeling of exclusivity and belonging. The second thing strategically, I think, is having a good stewardship strategy and arranging your benefits portfolio, bearing in mind that each benefit utilized is a way to measure partnership success. At the old Vic, for us, membership stewarding is a monthly discussion, you know, which fits with the number of members we have, so that those relationships stay dynamic and scalable. And membership is a funny one, right? Because it is a fixed framework, but at the same time, it's not a one size fits all glove. So I think it's always helpful to be on that balance board and to resource share with your team, because sometimes people who've been running an individual membership scheme may have, you know, brilliant insights, and I think this is a really good time to put brains together and figure out what works.
Great, thank you, Priya. And I think there's something really important in there about that internal dialogue actually is a great mechanism to build internal buy-in and to also improve internal understanding as to the why we're building something like this and what it's for and what we expect it to look like. And I completely agree. I think, you know, we often think about that, you know, guarding against, if someone, the decision maker, leaves that corporate, how do we ensure that we've got sort of, you know, other relationships on that side of the partnership? But I would say it's as important to think about that in the cultural organization as well. And, you know, your excellent point about assets being people, I completely agree. When I was at Opera North, we would ask members of like the company manager, for example, to occasionally take donors backstage. And I think for the company manager, they just thought it was almost slightly amusing because to them, that's their everyday. But the power of bringing those supporters through that stage door and taking them behind the scenes was incredibly compelling and really valuable. And I think, yeah, drawing our colleagues, our peers across our organizations into those relationships is a great way to harness some really fantastic assets that already exist. I've got one more question for you both, really, which is about sort of bigger picture thinking. So, you know, we've reflected on the fact that often the corporate membership is perhaps where a cultural organization or heritage organization starts or establishes its relationships with the business community. It's often the first place that a corporate will, like an entry point that they will come in at. But how do you think that opportunity of membership can serve as something of a jumping off point for a bespoke relationship in the future? How can we realize that? What are the sort of the things to be considering and looking out for? Priya, can I come to you first on that one?
Yes, of course. I mean, in short, yes, I think definitely it is that jumping off point. You're so right. And we've experienced that because we've had members who've purchased, you know, high level hospitality, members who've supported in a philanthropic capacity, and in kind capacity, and the list kind of goes on. And I think this knock-on effect, and the knock-on success is owed to strong relationship building and creating and cultivating your champions. The things I mentioned earlier, you know, effective comms, foregrounding your social mission and objectives, intentional stewardship. I think all of that contributes to nurturing individual and B2B relationships, which can grow into a partnership with broader scope. And, you know, I also said that we may not get as much face time with a member. And I think it's important to make those moments meaningful and responsible, and also to think about timing. I think timing is so golden, you know, especially when you're up against, you know, challenging targets, which most of us are. It's difficult to accept that the perfect moment might be a little bit down the line. You know, thinking about, is there something in your upcoming program that resonates with the value of the member business or indeed the contact? On the other hand, the member themselves could be going through something really exciting, like a merger, entry into a new market. And I think we should make the most of these moments and time our asks thoughtfully. And coming back to the more like tangible benefits, when you're bringing your supporters together in your space, members, partners, prospects, all of that, I think that's a chance to showcase your partnership credentials and how well you do partnership. And I think the Harewood Business Circle, that's such a, I think, you know, interesting and great way to look at it, because you're cultivating a well-knit corporate community, which is so key to unlocking those large scale potential with your members. And, you know, just one more idea that came to mind when I was reflecting on this question was the idea of growing your members by bringing your mission into their business. So the way we do that at the Old Vic is through our corporate training program, where we have theatre trained professionals who work with corporate employees on developing their communicational and personal presence skills. And it never fails to excite me seeing people come in the day being like, where the hell am I in this theatre? And then at the end of the day, they just come out of their shell completely as communicators. Another way people do this is perhaps employee volunteering. And I think by doing this, by bringing yourselves to a business, bringing your ethos to a business, you set yourself up for partnership success, because it demystifies the arts and heritage sector, which I think can sometimes be seen as a sort of distant or disconnected realm to corporate. But by cultivating that community, cultural organizations exist within the context and in symbiosis with the business world. And in that scenario, I think successful partnerships, the potential is limitless, I think, when you do that. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've given us some absolute pearls there, I think. So thank you. Thank you about creating those conditions for success. And that's excellent. Claire, what would you add to that?
I agree completely with Priya that, that idea of the sense of belonging, and also that you're creating that business community that support Harewood and can work together as well is one of the things we really want to achieve with Business Circle. And I think it can be really tempting to think, great, we've got 10 members, that's guaranteed this amount of income. It's probably quite helpful if they don't use all their benefits, because that's lots of work. But as we've all said, the more you can get them over the threshold, hosting meetings, doing, the more opportunities you have to interact, talk with them, for them to meet lots of different parts of the organisation, different key people in the organisation. Volunteering is really important for us. We have over 200 volunteers anyway, and we're looking at sort of, we get a lot of corporate requests. We're trying to say to people, we'll do like a corporate volunteering day and you're welcome to join in, but if you want bespoke volunteering opportunities, they take quite a lot of management. We tend to reserve those for corporate members, so that people think, oh, okay, I didn't know you had a scheme, and actually maybe if that can deliver our employee volunteering day and we can all come and collect leaves or polish copper pans in the kitchen or whatever it happens to be, then we'd be really interested in that. I think getting those people together, as well as your interactions with them individually, is really important. I know some of the people who've expressed an interest in membership have asked about things like networking lunches, breakfasts, and I think, again, you're facilitating some of their B2B relationships. The other thing I'd say, which can be really nice, is if you get someone who really gets you, is saying to them, who do you work with, who you want to bring here? You've got this many tickets or access to this private view, but look, bring 10 guests from your business relationships. It's such an easy thing to do, but they get to invite people. I'm a business member, I'm a Circle member at Harewood, and I get to invite these many of my clients or colleagues, and I can wax lyrical about how wonderful it is to be a Business Circle member, and why don't you guys join? And so I think some of that can be really useful. I think it's just about it's just about asking. And I think sometimes we've had a really great relationship with a very small corporate who, with the best will in the world, probably can't really join us at the level we'd like, but they then have introduced somebody who's come along who does have those budgets, can book us as a venue. So I think it's also about working together, working with those members as if they're sort of an extension of your team, which is when you're a team of two, is quite important to recruit anyone you can to help the effort, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, Claire. And I think, there's so much creativity in what you've articulated, thinking about how do you maximize and leverage what you're already doing to sort of derive further value and benefit. And, also, we've not really talked about sort of the staff within a corporate member organization, but, I tend to think that that's sort of a ready-made cohort of people to whom you can be communicating, and there might be scope for individual giving that comes as a result, or major donor relationships and so on. So the possibilities are sort of endless, but as ever, the challenge, I think, is to be as strategic as possible and to really understand where you can and should place your energy and your resource to leverage sort of the greatest return. I'm really conscious of time, and I just wanted to say sort of before I wrap up really that to me, I feel like you've really helped to demystify corporate fundraising and corporate membership in particular, which I know will be really helpful for people watching, whether they are at that sort of entry point of just starting to think about what the possibilities are and what a scheme could look like, or whether they are, you know, managing or working with an existing scheme and thinking about how to breathe new life into it or flex it to further support the organization's ambitions and financial ambitions as well. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you both, really, for your time and for your generosity in sharing your thoughts and reflecting on your experiences, which I know, you know, will be incredibly useful for everybody watching. To round off, here at Achates, of course, we offer a range of services, as I mentioned earlier, from recruitment to income generation, organisational development and strategy. So if any of the issues that we've covered today would warrant sort of further discussion, or you have any other areas that you would like to discuss with us, then please do speak to a member of our team. You can just drop us a line if you like to, which is at info@achates.org.uk. Just for a bit of housekeeping, to note that our next Achates Live will be, of course, on Thursday, the 10th of October. There'll be more details to follow on that soon, so do keep an eye on your inbox. And other than that, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you back with us again next month. Goodbye for now.